On May 2nd, get ready to escape. ISIS escaped from Transylvania. The goddess next door and John Haynes must escape a horde of vampires on the hunt in this horror-filled ISIS series adventure. Get ISIS Escape from Transylvania in paperback and e-reader May 2nd. Yesterday there was a report on the news that was a black eye for the Starbucks Corporation. Now, on this report, there were two black men who decided they were going to go to this Starbucks to meet with a client. Now, these two black men, they were real estate brokers, and they decided they wanted to go to this Starbucks to meet with this client. And this is something that many people do when they want to meet with a client or they want to meet with a date in a what they consider to be a safe space, because many people consider Starbucks to be a safe space. They consider it to be a neutral environment where they can meet people who they don't know and feel safe about going there. However, that whole notion that people have about Starbucks was flipped on its ear by a racist employee who decided that because these two black men were in a place they didn't want them to be, they decided to call the police. And they decided to call the police to say that these black men were loitering in this Starbucks when all they were doing was going to the Starbucks to meet with a client, and they were doing what everybody else usually does. Because when people go to the Starbucks, they will usually go to meet that person. What they will do is find a table, go have a seat at the table, and then wait for the individual to come. And then when the individual arrives, in many cases, they will go over to the counter and then place their order. But this overzealous employee decided they were going to call the police because this black person was considered a threat to them. And again, that's racial profiling, because you were considering the person a threat because they are black. Now, that's not a reason to call the police in any situation. If there is a person who comes into a restaurant and sits down and decides they want to meet someone, that's not loitering, especially if they are going to meet with a client, because that's good for your business. Because if that person is coming to meet at your business, chances are they were going to place an order. And when I take a look at this situation, again, it clearly shows me that there is a problem at Starbucks as related to the training of employees, and a problem as related to some of the attitudes some of these employees have. Because for someone to think that they needed to call the police regarding two black men shows me that someone at Starbucks didn't do a good job of training that employee on policy as related to intruders in a business. In order for a person to be considered an intruder in a business, they would have to be doing something like being violent or being obscene or threatening and intimidating customers. Someone doing something like aggressive panhandling or some sort of harassment like that. Two black men sitting at a table at a Starbucks should not be considered a threat as someone who is going there to a Starbucks to meet with a date, because that's making the Starbucks a place that is not considered a safe environment. And the reason why this is a black eye for the Starbucks Corporation is because this really tarnishes Starbucks' reputation overall. Because when it comes down to Starbucks, Starbucks is one of these companies that is one of the more liberal companies, and they preach tolerance and they preach safety, and they preach that their environments are considered safe environments for people to come to. When you have employees going out and participating in racial profiling, what that does is it makes a rift in between the community and Starbucks. And that's why the Starbucks CEO rushed to make an apology, because he saw the black eye being placed on his company by this poorly trained and incompetent and racist employee, because this employee really created a hostile environment for black people and created a hostile environment for Starbucks overall. Because from what I heard in the report, there were white people who said that they would go in there and not buy anything, get the code for the bathroom and go to the bathroom. And when I was watching many David Carroll videos, he would show clips of homeless people sleeping in the Starbucks. So why would someone believe that two professional, polished black men be a threat when in Starbucks in other parts of the country we have homeless people sleeping in a Starbucks and no one thinks to call the police about an individual who's clearly loitering in the Starbucks, but the two polished professional black men, they are considered a threat by this employee. Again, this is a clear sign to me that someone is not being trained well and someone has brought projected their issues on black men into the Starbucks job. And this is something, again, corporate really has to deal with because this is a black eye for the Starbucks Corporation. But it also shows me that a black man has to understand about the unwritten social rules for being a black man out here, because when it comes down to black men, we need to understand, again, there is a target on our back everywhere we go, and any situation out here on these streets could be the last day when we're on this earth. Because those two polished professional brothers, when they went into that Starbucks to meet with that client, they were not expecting to have police approach them and then handcuff them and try to arrest them, all for trying to meet with a client and try to do their jobs. These brothers went into that store trying to do what everyone else does. Unfortunately, when we live in a place like racist, white supremacist America, most black men cannot even think about doing the same things that white people and non-black people do because we are behind enemy lines, excuse me, and we are considered a threat to everyone else around us because when we walk into the room, people are looking at us and they're looking at us in a negative light. They're always looking for us to be some sort of threat or some sort of danger. And that's just sadly the way it is. And we have to look out for ourselves because everyone else is looking out for us and they're not looking out for us in the best way possible. So when it comes down to these situations, we have to understand about the unwritten social rules regarding black men and try to make efforts to minimize things so that we can survive to the next day. Because when it comes down to a lot of these racists, they'll sit there and project their ideas onto black people, not knowing who those black people are. And this is something that they do all the time because they'll sit there, they'll see a black man walk into a store, and I've had this happen to me, and I was wearing Brooks Brothers shirts and designer shoes and designer jeans, and all of a sudden you're still thinking I'm some sort of thief and I'm just coming here to go buy something in a place like a 99-cent store or one of these stores out here, but yet these store owners will sit there and think you're the criminal and you're going to steal from them when in some cases you have so much money you don't even need to come here, but you're coming here because it's nearby and convenient for you. You're doing this and they're thinking that you're some sort of threat when the actual threats are in many cases white women, old people, and they don't want to confront those people because those people, again, what they will do is file lawsuits against them, but they'll confront the black man because they believe the black man won't fight back. And I believe that black people, again, in this case, they need to fight back and they need to make a powerful statement in this case, even though the Starbucks CEO has apologized about making sure that this doesn't happen again, because the best way for us to deal with this is to, one, take constructive course of action where we say, you're not just going to give us an apology, we need to hear some assurances about retraining, because this employee is no different than George Zimmerman as I see it, because after reading about George Zimmerman, when he had several other security jobs, he was fired from those security jobs because he got overzealous and decided to attack people who he thought was a threat. And if it wasn't for George Zimmerman racially profiling Trayvon Martin, that young man would be alive today. And that the reason why that young man is dead today is because of an overzealous racist like George Zimmerman decided he was going to racially profile this young man and decide he was going to take the law into his own hands instead of letting law enforcement do its job. And this person decided they were going to be overzealous and they were going to go call the police and then create a escalated situation and make it worse when there was no situation at all. People all over this country have gone to Starbucks they've gone to meet their dates, they've gone to meet clients, and they've sat in the restaurant and no one has told them anything about, oh, you need to place an order. And the reason why they did that is because people considered Starbucks to be a safe space. They considered it to be a safe environment. And usually, because they felt so safe, usually what happened was this. People would go in, meet their clients, meet their dates, and then they would place an order. And this is how Starbucks made its money. But because you have a overzealous racist working at this company who doesn't understand company policy, this is what led to the escalation of a situation which led to a black eye for the Starbucks Corporation and showed how racist some of the people working at Starbucks are and how there really needs to be, again, constructive action taken to deal with these type of individuals either in the interview process or the screening process or with advanced training so that they understand that it is not your job to be the policeman over the Starbucks sales floor. It is your job to provide customer service to any customer, whether they be a potential customer at the counter or potential customer in the dining area in the front of house. If you'd like to see me make more videos like this, you can donate to my Patreon by clicking the link in the description box. And if you want to try some of my SJS Direct publications, you may do so by clicking the link to Amazon.com. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.